everyone. Thank you for attending today's Checkpoint webinar. My name is Aubrey, and I'm going to be your host for the day. Presenting to you all today is Tony Sabaj, Head of Channel Engineering in the Office of CTO at Checkpoint. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your audience console are multiple application widgets you can use. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit your questions in the Q&A box, and they will be answered in the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. You can also expand your slide area by clicking on the maximize icon on the top right of the slide viewer. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the Help widget. Lastly, if you would please take a moment to fill out the survey at the end of the webinar, we would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I will pass it off to Tony to kickstart today's presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you all for joining today. For the next hour or so, and hopefully a little bit less, I'm going to go over Checkpoint's Infinity platform, which is really a platform that we use to deliver the best security to the market. So without further ado, let me jump right in. First thing I want to talk about is a little bit about Checkpoint, because it's important to understand sort of where we've come from and really what drives all of our development at Checkpoint. We've been a global leader for almost 30 years now, over 6,000 employees, some very cutting-edge technologies and patents that we own, and I'm not going to go through all the patents and everything that we've sort of invented, including sort of stateful firewalls and a lot of other technologies. Public company traded on the NASDAQ since 1996. And we've just recently been named, the #1 cybersecurity employer in the world. So Checkpoint's for this industry, a very old company, but continues to innovate and continues to lead the market with some great solutions. There we go. So just some of the awards that we've won recently. Been a 22 years leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We've been in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for UTM for as long as that product category has been around. We've scored well in head-to-head tests. Even some later ones like the MITRE Ingenuity test for endpoint security. We scored top scoring product. We're a leader in cloud email security. We just won another award that's not in the presentation from CRN in that space. Our mobility solutions continue to win awards, and our CloudGuard products, which I'll talk about in a second, have also been recognized as leaders in the industry. And many, many very famous companies, and some that aren't listed here, obviously, rely on Checkpoint to secure their environment. Obviously, these are a lot of household names. There's others that obviously aren't referenceable, and many other organizations that are much smaller than these organizations that rely on Checkpoint to secure their environment. And as you can see, our customers, our user base loves us. This is just some snippets from the G2 survey. In that we're a leader in over 15 categories, and this is direct feedback from customers, not some analyst. This is how customers that are using our products compared to others rate Checkpoint. So across the board in VPN, email, IPS, cloud security, firewalls, cloud data, a whole host of endpoints, DLP, antivirus, policy management, mobile. So all these different categories that Checkpoint does. And this is really why we deliver a security platform to the market. One thing that Checkpoint takes very, very seriously is security. Not only do we implement and innovate great products that we bring to market, but we also take security of our own solutions and our own environment very seriously. And just to give you an idea, over the past 5 years, this is a list of critical and high vulnerabilities that have been identified in the products. So not protecting against these vulnerabilities, but vulnerabilities that actually exist within the different software and hardware modules of Checkpoint, Palo, Fortinet, Cisco. And not here to bash competition, But it goes to show that not only do we have a fraction of the vulnerabilities, our response to those vulnerabilities shows our security leadership in the market, and that we do take security incredibly seriously. And the ethos that Check Point does across really our entire portfolio, and really why we go to market, is really around prevention and prevention of malware or threats, and not detection. There's lots of solutions out there that can do basic detection and then tell you there's a problem, or go back 3 months and tell you exactly what happened. Not every solution on the product in the world is 100%, but we want to be able to block and be able to prevent issues before they happen, which is sometimes not as say heroic as going in and trying to clean up after a giant mess, but being able to prevent that in the first place. But it really holds true throughout Check Point's entire portfolio. So our mission is to really allow any organization to conduct their business on the internet with the highest level of security. And this is really how we go to market. It's an ethos and a model that is very much reinforced in everyday life at Check Point. So if we look, and hopefully the slide looks better to you than it does to me. If you look at high level of what Check Point we call our Infinity architecture, it really has 5 main components. One being Quantum, which is our suite of products that secure the network. One being CloudGuard, which is our suite of products that secure the cloud. And one being Harmony, which is our suite of products that secure users and access. And we wrap it all together with what we call Horizon, which is our unified management and security operations. So this is our management utilities that bring everything together, our MDR, MPR solutions, and our threat management. And then everything that we do gets powered by what we call our threat cloud. And our threat cloud is not just one of the world's largest collections of IOCs, so indicators of compromise, but it's also a cloud solution that is constantly updating in real time all of our solutions with the latest threat information, the latest updates to all of our AI engines, and even software updates on the fly to our engines to better protect our customers. So if we look a little bit more detailed into the Infinity architecture that Check Point provides, and I'm not going to read this slide to you, just wanted to show it to you because we're going to go into detail on each one of these subsections. It really shows the breadth of what Check Point brings to market. And one of our big advantages is that all of our solutions really do work together. These are not hodgepodges of different solutions. Every single one of these solutions was built to work together. Even if the technology was acquired through acquisition, it was done, and we don't release the product as part of the Infinity architecture until it's been fully integrated and seamlessly works with Horizon and sharing information across the entire estate. So let's start off high level with Quantum. So Quantum is really around securing the network. And obviously the obvious product lines in here are Check Point firewalls and Check Point gateways, which is what Check Point is obviously most known for. So we're looking at data center security, perimeter security, our branch and SMB security, which is very unique. We have a couple of cool solutions that we'll get into called Hyperscale, which gives you sort of cloud agility of security processing, but on premise. A brand new IoT solution, and again, unified management that's powered by over 60 threat prevention engines that go across the entire Quantum line and even some of the other product lines. Our Harmony product line deals with secure users and access. And it's really a unified security solution that covers sort of the industry nomenclature of things like endpoint security, email security, CASB, secure web gateway, SASE, SSE. And it's a suite of products that allow you to be able to provide access from any type of device, from any type of location to any type of server or data access in a seamless way, regardless of whether it's a SaaS application, whether it's just an internet application, or whether it's sitting in your data center or public cloud or private cloud. So it really is a very unique solution that's all encompassing from a user and access perspective. And again, we'll go a little bit deeper into it. Build this slide. That was not too far. And then our CloudGuard solution, obviously, is around securing the cloud. And when we talk about cloud security, we're obviously, talking about, AWS and Azure and Google. But our cloud security also extends into, and Alibaba, that are doing business in Asia and China specifically. But our cloud security also goes into hybrid and private clouds. So we support, OCI, so Oracle's cloud, IBM's cloud. We support hybrid cloud or private cloud solutions like Nutanix and VMware, whether it's just native ESI or it's NSX or NSXT, Cisco ACI, OpenStack. So those types of solutions that are private cloud. And we can provide network threat prevention. So we take our technology from our gateways and we make it available natively within the cloud platforms. And it's not just running a virtual machine with our software on it. It's really designed to use the underlying network and the underlying capabilities of the different cloud providers. So things like supporting transit gateways in AWS and scale sets in Azure, really being able to integrate into that. And then we have our cloud native solutions, which, and again, we'll go a little bit deeper into it, but look at your posture management, your web and API security, your workload protection, and also threat hunting within the cloud environment. And then we wrap all these solutions together with Horizon, which provide our managed detection and response, managed prevention and response. As I said, Checkpoint's all about prevention. Industry likes to call it MDR, so we did, but it's really more of a preventative solution. We have our extended, prevention and response, which gets into incidents and threat hunting and custom IOC management. Then we have our Horizon events, which is really more like a SIM tool for your security events to be able to troubleshoot, investigate, retention, and then do connectors to third parties. And again, Horizon covers and goes across the entire Checkpoint product line and third parties, even competitors to Checkpoint. So it is a very full-featured MDR solution. And everything that Checkpoint does from a product perspective is powered by what we call Threat Cloud, which is not just our giant database of indicators of compromise, but it is the updating of all of our AI technology. We even run our AI engines in Threat Cloud, so we're not using the processing on your local devices or hardware or cloud environment. We're actually using the processing in our own environment. And as I said, Threat Cloud powers everything that Checkpoint does. There's even APIs to get into it. And just to give you the size of Threat Cloud is that it's doing 68 billion overall queries or decisions a day. So it's a very robust system that powers everything at Checkpoint. And Checkpoint's always been known for management. We've been the gold standard for management for as long as I can remember. And we've even updated that to be able to make management of your security policies across the board much easier by introducing autonomous threat prevention. So instead of having to come up with IPS policies and threat policies for your environment, we give you some starting points, and then we dynamically adapt those policies based on what we're seeing in your environment. So it's a continuous update of your threat policies. Just a couple of quotes. We have tons of customer and analyst quotes, but I picked out a few good ones that really highlight what Checkpoint's trying to do. And Forrester is saying that Checkpoint has an admirable vision to be so good at threat prevention that it protects everyday business customers who aren't cybersecurity specialists running a sophisticated SOC. meaning that we have some great technology and we do some really cool stuff. You don't need to know how to be an AI programmer. We make it very easy to consume a very complex technology that we bring to market. And even from a CloudGuard perspective, that CloudGuard provides some of the best compliance views for a broad set of frameworks. So it's a new approach to add risk scoring, and I'll get into that in the cloud environment. So let me take a little bit deeper dive into our Harmony suite. You guys have seen this slide. Let me go through here and talk about. So Harmony Connect is really what you would call a SASE or SSE and CASB solution, and sort of VPN as a service, kind of all wrapped into a single system that can be used in many different ways. So our Harmony Connect infrastructure, which is a cloud service that we provide, has firewall as a service, intrusion prevention as a service, data loss prevention as a service, secure web gateway. All of our advanced threat protection engines are part of this, and a zero trust network access module that runs in Checkpoint's environment, or Checkpoint's cloud environment, and that you can connect to either with a lightweight client, a completely clientless solution, or a simple browser add-in that can provide access to this cloud environment. And it doesn't make any difference where your applications or where the access that you're trying to get to. It could be your internal data center and using VPN as a service. It could be a public cloud, so infrastructure as a service like AWS or Azure. It could be a corporate network that you're trying to get VPN access to, or it could be specific applications that are on the internet, where we're trying to do access control and security of the entire connection. And there's a lot of SASE vendors out there, and a lot of them do a very good job of the access piece of it. Many of them don't do a very good job of actually securing the data and the connections that are going over that link or that forward proxy or SSL tunnel. They do a very good job of making the connection and authenticating the users. They don't do a good job of actually looking at the data that's in there to see if there's threats or loss of data within that environment. So as I mentioned, Harmony Connect, again, a cloud service that we can do, kind of layer 3 VPN as a service with a very small agent, or completely clientless with our zero trust network access as a service. So we can basically front end any application that's essentially using HTTP, RDP, or SSH, and allows you to present that application as a SaaS-based application to your end users. They log in, they see what applications they have access to. Obviously, there's a very strong authentication, and we work with many of the identity providers out there. And then we secure that connection to that application. And that connection is actually an outbound connection from the application to our data center, and then a connection from the client to our data center. So there's no need to open up access to your data centers or wherever these applications exist. You're just allowing access into Checkpoint's environment, and then we're brokering all the security and the access control within our system. Excuse me. We can also, for completely clientless, we can also add an extension to a web browser, really more for internet access than specific application access. But it's a very small browser extension that we call a nano agent that plugs into your browser and allows you to have sort of full secure web gateway service for all of your internet browsing. So we can prevent malware downloads, real-time phishing protection for websites. You can set your own URL filtering policy. We can look to make sure you're not using corporate passwords outside the organization, and data loss prevention, all with a very small browser plugin. This works well for machines that you don't manage. Also works very, very well for machines that are just a web browser, such as tablets, even though we have a full-blown mobile solution, and Chromebooks, and those types of devices. And then also part of Harmony is a full-blown endpoint protection and EDR. Again, we don't like to use the word detection. We like to use prevention, but the industry uses it, so we will use it, but it could be called an EPR. But our full endpoint solution contains many different solutions. So your traditional host firewall, we have compliance and posture checking of the host itself, your traditional VPN, full-blown data security, so full disk encryption, either our own full disk encryption or we can manage BitLocker, medium port protection to be able to control what type of data and what type of devices can be plugged into the device itself, and we can restrict that. We do our sandboxing and CDR, which is the content disarm and reconstruction. So basically any file that you're downloading or moving, we can basically flatten and take all risks out immediately. Next generation AV, anti-malware, our zero phishing technology that goes across many of our products. Whole behavioral analysis engine, this is really that more forensic side of things. Our anti-bot solutions and anti-exploit, and then our anti-ransomware solution, which is absolutely fantastic. It's kind of the last line of defense for ransomware, where if the initial impact or installation of ransomware or breach doesn't get picked up by any other solution, whether it's a checkpoint gateway or whether it's checkpoint endpoint, or even a different solution, what we do is we monitor every new process on the endpoint. If it even smells like ransomware, we look at it even closer and we start to do nano backups of every single file that process is touching. And then if we do determine that it's ransomware, we'll obviously shut it down immediately or restore the files with no user intervention. And we have yet to take any live ransomware on that we've been able to get a hold of that has been able to bypass our anti-ransomware. But we do use it as sort of the last line of defense. Hopefully we've caught it before it gets to the exploit stage on the endpoint. But as I said, nothing is 100%. Probably the newest addition to the Harmony product line is Harmony Email and Collaboration. So a few months ago, a year ago, we bought a company called Avanan, which is a business email and compromise solution. So it's the fastest growing cloud email security vendor. They had over 5,000 customers on their own, protecting millions of users and inboxes. Very highly rated and very high security effectiveness rate. So we've taken Avanan, which is actually, we had a partnership with them for many years. So integrating Avanan into what we call Harmony Email and Collaboration, which is now part of the Harmony suite, again, is an API-based email security and SaaS application security. And what's unique about this is that it does not change your environment. There's no MTA changes, there's no cloud MTA, there's no DNS changes. We actually work on the back end with the entire Office suite, Google Workspace, Dropbox and Box and other SaaS providers. And we do it completely API based. So we're actually using APIs from those vendors to be able to insert our security. So we're an inline solution, but we're in line with APIs that have no effect on the operation of your email security or your SaaS security. Besides obviously providing great security both from a malware prevention and a DLP prevention, and number one in the industry from a catch rate, and again focusing on that prevention first aspect of it. Then we also have Harmony Mobile, which is our mobile security suite that runs on iOS and Android devices. Obviously, mobile phones come to play, tablets come to play. There's also lots of embedded devices that are built on Android more so than iOS. But it provides network protection, so man-in-the-middle attacks, phishing attacks. It does device and OS vulnerabilities and configuration changes. And then, kind of its, sort of main solution is really preventing the download of malicious applications. So as new applications are added to the device, we actually fingerprint that application. We go back to our threat cloud and said, hey, have you seen this before? If we haven't seen it, our threat cloud will go out to the appropriate app store and then sandbox that application and then make the determine on whether it's malicious or not based on our own findings and your settings. So it's a very robust mobile security solution. And what's nice about it is that most of the work is not being done on the device itself. So we're not using bandwidth and we're not using battery on the device to provide the bulk of the functionality of SandBlast Mobile or Harmony Mobile. So really, kind of wrap up Harmony, it's really a 360-degree user protection against zero-day threats. So we're looking at multiple different types of threats, from malware to 0 days, ransomware, data leakage, account takeover, man-in-the-middle phishing attempts, in all types of vectors. So emails, websites, networks, applications, removable media, different types of file transfers, even human error with behavioral engines that we have. And looking at it from all devices. So we can deliver this solution to you in a very easy to manage and easy to consume way. So you've seen the threat cloud slide. Again, just driving home that our threat cloud is powering everything that we do. And just a few awards that we won specifically in the endpoint security, mobile security space is really tops in the industry as even just a standalone endpoint solution. So we want to make it easy to use, easy to manage, and easy to acquire. So all the different solutions I talked about can be obviously bought and implemented individually. We have what we call a Harmony Total solution, which gives you all of these solutions on a user basis without having to worry about individually licensing or purchasing all the products a la carte. So I'm going to pause and take a drink before we kind of go to the next section. So our next section is quantum, really around securing the network, and we talked about that. I'm not going to go into feeds and speeds, but Checkpoint has a very large product line of Checkpoint appliances that range anywhere from a few $100s from an SMB or branch office perspective, all the way up to a lot of money for a full a fully maxed out what we call Maestro solution, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the point I want to make is that there's a price point and a capacity kind of for every single organization out there. Essentially, the security software that is powering these applications. So you could buy an $800, $1,500, or you could go spend multiple millions on a full, a fully decked out Maestro orchestrator. It's all the same software. It's the same firewall. It's the same IPS engine. It's the same threat engine. It's the same DLP engine. It's the same every engine. The level of security that you get for $800 is no different than the level of security that you get at a gazillion dollars, because you can spend as much money as you want on this, which I'll talk about. So keep that in mind, that these aren't really separate solutions, just really different feeds and speeds. But what we've seen, in data center and traditional network security is, we need to deliver better security and better price performance. Networks, data centers are still growing, and we're seeing a lot more usage of ultra-low latency connections. And we've been able to address that in a number of different ways. So Checkpoint's a software company. It's right in the name of our company. We're Checkpoint Software Technologies Limited, or Inc., depending on which country you're in. But what we've done is, most of our secret sauce is almost all in software, which is why we're able to deliver kind of the same solution across a broad set of sort of enforcement points. But earlier this year, we partnered with NVIDIA to move our stateful inspection engine, sort of our main stateful firewall engine, can actually run on the NVIDIA Connect X NIC, which has the NVIDIA ASIC on it. And by putting these NIC cards with the NVIDIA chips on them, we're able to get hyper fast throughput at line speeds with little to no latency, or ultra low latency, 3 nanosecond latency, and then combining this with some of our clustering technology that we're talking about. We're talking about getting up to 3 terabytes, of line speed traffic in a single sort of firewall solution. And this is very unique and allows us to partner with NVIDIA. Obviously, the card comes from Check Point, but does have the NVIDIA DPU ASIC on it, and really allows us to scale even compared to our own solutions, from 250 gig at very low price to 800 gigabits per second on a single device. We'll talk about how we can hyperscale that in a minute. So kind of the next sort of innovation we've done from a hardware perspective or gateway perspective is something that we call Maestro. And Maestro is what we call our hyperscale platform. And what it does is we take a switch that comes from Check Point, and our clustering and networking technology is on that switch. And the switch essentially becomes your firewall interfaces. And you can do multiple security groups. You could have kind of 2 different firewall systems, 3 or 4, up to 16 running off this switch. And then when you just need more compute or more performance, you just plug a box into the switch and it automatically configures it to be part of this overall security system. Or you plug it in and you tell it which security group or which kind of logical firewall you want it to be a part of. There's even the ability to have spares in here, so when one set of firewalls or one security group needs more power, you can pull it in, and then when it doesn't need power, it pulls it out. So it really gives you that sort of agility of the cloud in your data center from a security processing standpoint. And then that combined with the quantum light speed, which you can use on its own or use it within Maestro, allows us to get to a single system that's doing 3 terabits of 3 terabits a second with very low latency. And what I really like about the Maestro solution is that not that most people need 3 terabits per second, and obviously there's a cost associated with that, but it does let you grow based on your budget and your growth plan. So if you were to do traditional clusters, you have to buy all the same machines. You sort of have to build out that capacity for what you need for the next 3 to 5 years ahead of time. With Maestro, you can start small and just add to it. So you can start at a very low price point, and then as your organization grows and you need more power, you can just literally throw more appliances at it and scale that way without having to have that sort of N+1 problem when you do any kind of server clustering or router clustering. And sort of the last innovation we've done recently from a quantum perspective is our Quantum IoT Protect. Our theory is you can't protect what you don't know. And what we can do is use a checkpoint device to be able to look at devices on your network and identify them, and not only identify and quantify them and make you aware of them, but also create automated policies. So, there's many instances of, things like IP cameras being vulnerable, somebody taking over the IP cameras, putting some sort of bot, command and control on there, and then using those IoT devices to do lateral movement or to exfiltrate data within the customer's environment, or to even shut down the cameras, which have its own set of issues. So what Quantum IoT Protect does is allows you to do discovery and risk analysis, and then create autonomous security policies. If even a medium-sized organization is probably going to have thousands of IoT devices in their environment, you're not going to be able to create a policy and look at those with human eyes. So we take our intelligence from Threat Cloud, and we say, hey, this is IP camera of type X. This is the policy that it should have. It should only talk to the internet, to these update servers. It's only talking these protocols, and we can automatically set those policies. And then unify all of those events and management, into our Horizon platform. So we can discover all sorts of IoT devices, things like smart locks, printers, IP cameras, TVs. Think of an office of how many smart TVs, are plugged into that office. Those inherently have vulnerabilities. Projectors, coffee machines. I don't know why, but my coffee machine has Wi-Fi, and I haven't quite figured out why I need it, but it does, and all sorts of different IoT devices. And so we will discover them. We send that discovery information to our cloud, and then we push back down policies to your environment, based on what we're seeing, not just in your environment, but what we're seeing across the industry. And it's not just for quantum. We can also do this for things like Harmony Connect, when you're trying to give, access to, remote employees or remote applications to these IoT devices. So again, this is really the power of Checkpoint's Infinity platform and Horizon, that we can share information in real time across our entire environment and push that information out. I'll pause for one more second and take a drink before we get into CloudGuard. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A. So as I mentioned, CloudGuard is obviously our solutions that protect not just public cloud, but also private and hybrid clouds. But from more of a public cloud perspective, we break our cloud security into network security, which is really taking the core of our gateway technology and adapting it for the different cloud providers, not just the sort of big three of AWS, Azure and Google, and again Alibaba if you're doing business in China, but also other clouds like Oracle and IBM, and even private clouds like Nutanix and NSX, NSXT, VMware, Cisco ACI, other solutions like that. But from a more native security perspective, we have solutions around CSPM, cloud security posture management, workload protection, app and API security, wrapping it with threat intelligence, a new KIM solution, which is cloud infrastructure entitlement management, sort of pipeline shift left infrastructure as a code security, and then we wrap it all together with a risk management platform that makes sense of all of this in your environment. And again, all powered by ThreatCloud. So if we look, at how CloudGuard is attacking the market, we have sort of our infrastructure with our network security that again is across private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. You could also throw in your data centers, and one of the sort of unique things about our network security is that it's managed the same way as a traditional gateway or firewall, and even sharing the same policies and sharing information. So when you go to set your firewall policies, you can set them for your cloud and your physical firewalls all in one place, and share information, and even share cloud information like tags and security groups, and be able to put those types of objects automatically in your traditional firewall policies. So a completely integrated solution. And then from a more native cloud protection solution, we look at some of the other solutions that I just talked about. We'll go a little bit deeper into it. And then also securing the infrastructure with the infrastructure of the code scanning and some of our posture management tools. So talked about the network security and all the different clouds that we support. Being able to automatically deploy, build these into, whether they're Terraform scripts or frameworks that you build within the cloud environments. Again, all of this can be done via API, so you don't have to use GUIs and things like that. The API code's boring to show in PowerPoint presentations. But really getting that unified management across all of your network security, regardless of where it's being enforced. And then for more of a native solution, we have our posture management tool, which gives you, inventory, how all of your applications and VNets and VPCs, depending on what cloud you're in, are connected, what's in them, giving you compliance reports, not just for best practices, but also for like industry compliance, like HIPAA and PCI and frameworks like NIST, and SOC 2 Type 2. So we have over 300 or 2,000 actually pre-built rule sets, and then you have the ability to create your own and do this continuous compliance. So as soon as something in your environment is no longer compliant, this system is alerted, and then you can do automated response. And then we add our own intelligence into your cloud environment. So we're using our threat cloud to be able to do threat hunting and be able to create actionable intelligence. So we're able to identify threats, not just by using data from your own environment, but using data across the entire sort of checkpoint ecosystem, and giving you that visibility tools to basically say, hey, here's entities that I have. These could be applications, they could be functions, they could be virtual machines. They're available externally, and then here's the DMZ, here's your internal, and these are based on your security groups. We can see how they're connected, and we can even highlight that, hey, there was a malicious connection coming from this internet device into this web front end that would traverse the DMZ and actually got into your internal network or your internal security group. So we're able to show this in real time and give you that visibility of not just how your cloud is connected from a network perspective, but how it's connected from an application interdependency perspective. And as we get into the kind of shift left and CI/CD part of CloudGuard, we have the ability to scan your infrastructure as a code, regardless where that code exists. So it could be in GitHub, GitLab. It could be in any of the code repositories that the cloud providers have, and we can scan that code both as it's being developed and in real time to be able to look for things like secrets, be able to look for best practices, known vulnerabilities, calling vulnerable libraries. Most people are calling open source type libraries, and really providing security from the initial code to the actual deployment within the cloud. So both looking at it both from a development and a runtime perspective. And then if we look at more securing the workloads, our web app and API security that we actually call AppSec is a automated web security gateway. It's really a WAF replacement, a web access firewall. It really replaces a WAF, and it's not a WAF on its own because it takes a whole novel approach to it. But it's really a plug-in to your front ends, whether you're using things like Nginx or you're using the Azure load balancers, AWS load balancers, even putting it within containers. This could even run on things like VMware. And what it does is it actually learns your environment. So it's fully automated for detection. There's actually not a lot of configuration you need to do for this. It actually learns your environment to see kind of what's normal, and then applies our AI and our constant feed from Threat Cloud to your web front ends and APIs, protecting you against all the top attacks, and being able to implement these in a matter of minutes. And the reason we don't call it a WAF is because a WAF requires a lot of care and feeding, requires the security people to really understand how the web application is working in order to make it successful. And this is an automated policy. In fact, this solution actually caught Log4j before we even knew what Log4j was. Not saying that Checkpoint discovered it, but we actually blocked Log4j before anybody knew what it was as a cross-site scripting attack, which kind of is if you look at it. And then when Log4j came out, we went back and we said, oh, I wonder if our AppSec was catching this. We went back and did some threat hunting, and we're like, oh yeah, this solution was actually catching Log4j before anybody knew about it. Again, we didn't discover Log4j, but we did discover after the fact that we were blocking it and identifying it before anybody knew what it was. And then we can also extend this security into functions. So a lot of agile apps are now being written with functions instead of virtual machines and the real agile cloud development. And we can protect functions at their creation to make sure they're being used properly, they're following best practices. Again, they're not calling vulnerable libraries. And then we can also excuse me, protect these functions at runtime, and be able to say, hey, there's overprivileged access with these functions to this data, and it's really a very robust solution for more cloud native solutions. And again, extending this into containers. Containers are becoming much more popular ways to have portable code that can run anywhere, and we can actually insert within a Kubernetes environment that's running Dockers, and be able to again do posture management and do runtime, where you might even have full-blown operating systems running inside these containers. We can do posture checking of those and actual runtime prevention of security threats that's running inside the container, because you lose traditional visibility when you start containerizing applications. So that's our native cloud security solutions, and again, all wrapped up under the CloudGuard name, and working with, and this is just a sampling of the partners that we work with just from a cloud perspective. So, obviously all the major cloud providers, different sort of workflow providers through the ServiceNow and Slack. We can even take in tenable information and use that to protect your environment. And this is really where Checkpoint has a lot of flexibility. So we've talked a lot about Horizon, how it manages and wraps around all of these solutions. So I'll skip past stuff we've seen before. As I said, we're a prevention-first company, so we like to do prevention first. We like to automate that prevention, so you don't have to keep on top of this on a daily basis. We will use best practices. We will also use our own research and information that we get from our threat cloud. So we have hundreds of researchers that are just doing security research, not developing products. That research is obviously part of threat cloud and used in the development of our products. But our threat cloud is also fed by every single one of our customers, and also lots of third-party and industry feeds that we put together. So it's really a very powerful tool within the Checkpoint Infinity architecture. And as I mentioned, we have our Horizon, MPR, MDR, which is a managed detection and response. So we can take alerts and logs from not only Checkpoint solutions, but also many third-party solutions, including competitors, and provide actionable intelligence on those alerts. And again, using our own SOC as a service, so using our own human beings, employed around the world that are Checkpoint employees that work in our SOC, and then also using the power of Threat Cloud and our AI engines to be able to say, hey, this looks like an issue. Let's issue an alert and a preventative strategy for it. And then coming soon, we'll be able to expand that into an extended prevention and response, and be able to do things like threat hunting and take in third-party IOCs into your specific environment. And then Checkpoint's answer to a SIM is Horizon Events, which allow us to take information from Checkpoint and third parties and be able to have a SIM and a SOAR platform on top of Horizon Events to be able to do automated remediation and action around different combinations of alerts. But this is really one of the things that truly sets Checkpoint apart, is really being able to have that unified management across CloudGuard, Harmony, Quantum, and now even third-party solutions from a SIM SOAR and MDR perspective. So not only do we have Horizon and our Checkpoint research, which I talked about. But we also have a incident response team, which is very much tied to our Horizon SOC team. But they are there to respond to incidents in real time. We handled, probably on track to do probably 4,000 incidents this year. And it is a rapid response team of individuals that can be called on either ad hoc or via kind of a retainer fee. And you don't have to be a Checkpoint customer in order to take advantage of incident response. Most of our incidents are actually not Checkpoint customers. Kind of shows the power of our solution. So really, Checkpoint's Infinity architecture is really not only delivering the best security, but really consolidating it into a single platform. I'm not going to say it's a single pane of glass, but it is a single management platform that allows you to share information and have a consistent security policy across the board. That. And really, as part of our SOC as a service, and I've made this analogy a million times, and I'll continue to do it, is that everything we do, even our Horizon platform, is powered by our threat cloud. You cannot hire enough people in the world to be able to do SOC as a service and create IoT policies or do threat hunting. You have to be able to do it in a artificial intelligence, machine learning perspective, and that's exactly what threat cloud does. So just an example of more of like a SOAR integration that we call play blocks. That's part of our solution, is that we can we see an issue, we validate that it's an issue, we can automatically isolate that host, we can enable the preventative technology on the different solutions that you're using, and then we can make remediations, saying, hey, passwords need to be changed, or this email needs to be quarantined, and we can direct our solutions to be able to do those preventative measures. So it really is a unique solution. And as we said, prevention first approach, even from a threat hunting perspective, is a lot of threat hunting services will say, hey, you're going to have an issue soon. We're going to find that same information, and then we're going to tell you exactly how to prevent it. And we can even automate some of that prevention. And with our Infinity portal that powers all of this, you have one place to go to manage your network security, your cloud security, your SASE, all the Harmony suite, and information is shared across all these environments to be able to use objects and dynamic information that we learn either from the cloud or from your network or from your endpoints. If a endpoint solution host gets compromised or gets quarantined, your firewalls and your cloud security can automatically be made aware of that, and obviously not allow that device to connect in or access applications in the cloud or on your network. So it truly is a unified management solution across most of your security state, wrapped together with all the analytics and orchestration that Horizon brings. So I will stop and see if there are any questions in the Q&A. And I'll take a drink of water, and then I will answer a couple questions. So one of the questions has to deal with, we talked about a lot of products here and solutions from Checkpoint. And we talked about it making easy to consume this from a technology perspective. We've also made this easy to consume from a commercial business perspective. Is we have we'll call it an ELA, but it's more than an ELA, that we call it an Infinity agreement, that is really a consumption-based agreement. So we can work with any customer and say, hey, we know that over the next 5 years you're going to spend whatever $500,000 a year on security, but that security may shift over those 5 years. Maybe you're just now starting a real digital transformation to the cloud, and you still need a lot of network and data center security, not so much cloud security. But then over the next 18 months to 2 to 3 years, you're going to be shifting that investment to more cloud security and less to traditional network security or on-premise security. Our Infinity agreement or Infinity Total Protection Agreement, whatever you want to call it, allows us to not only allow you to do that from a technical perspective in a very easy and robust way, but also from a commercial perspective, that we can shift that spend from maybe the Quantum line of products into CloudGuard, or from Quantum into Harmony, or maybe using less CloudGuard and more Harmony. You're able to shift that sort of spend and investment around, and even if we can start it off as kind of maybe a lower investment at the beginning and grow it from there. And this way you don't have to worry about having to go out and be like, oh, what product do I need? What SKU do I need? Oh, I need 5 more users because I hired 5 more people. I've got to go back and do a PO and all that kind of stuff. We allow you to consume it based on the size of your organization. And of course, it includes all of our, we can include all of our Horizon services into that as part of the agreement. So not only do we do it from a technical perspective, we can also do it from a business and commercial perspective. The one main question. If anybody else has any more questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A. Let me look at the chat. Okay. All right. I don't see any further questions, so I thank everybody for their time. I thank Insight for inviting everybody, and I will hang on for a couple more seconds if there's any more questions, or if anybody wants me to follow up and get in touch with them, I'm more than happy to do so. You can throw that in the chat or the Q&A.
Thank you, Tony, for a fantastic presentation. Like you said, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And if not, please remember to take a moment at the end of the webinar to answer a few questions on the survey, and we'll greatly appreciate it. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So with that, this will be the end of the webinar. Thank you for attending, everyone.